Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Pokemon Go video. In this video, we're going to be going over some of the concerns and issues that have been brought up by the Pokemon Go community, and we're also joined by FLW Videos. For those of you guys who do not know who that is, which I'd be surprised if you didn't, he's another Pokemon Go YouTuber who does cover a lot of amazing content. Honestly, if you haven't checked out his channel, I'd highly recommend it. I've been following him for the past year. Yeah, just great stuff all around. So really happy to have him on here.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you so much for having me on to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. I have been watching you as well for quite some time, and I like that you cover some of the niche topics that not every creator covers, so I appreciate that. Also, thank you to all of my fans who came over here to check out your channel. I definitely appreciate it.
Like I said, it's a pleasure having you on here, man. Before we go ahead and get started, though, I do have a question for you, and I'm sure a lot of your fans are probably wondering this as well. Why the name FLW Videos?
So something kind of funny is I feel like there's two layers of fans, right? There are the ones who don't know that it necessarily has a meaning to it. They don't really know what it is. And then there's the second layer who knows, oh, it's famous last words. That's what it is. That's why I used to go by famous, but got called conceited, so I had to stop doing that. You know, that was just like, I guess, a branding choice. But there is a third layer of people, and that is the people who know why I chose famous last words. And that group is very small. The reason why I picked it was in college, I would hear people say really dumb things where they'd be like, hold my beer, I'm gonna go do this, or no, I don't need a helmet. And then someone would quote them and just say, famous last words, as if that were the last thing that this person said before they did something dumb, right? And that just stuck in my mind. I'm like, that's such a cool phrase. Famous last words, I kind of like that. And that's where the name came about it. I made it my PlayStation live name. And then it transcended into the channel because I had no idea what to call my channel, to be honest.
Wow. All right. Well, that's an interesting backstory. Appreciate you sharing that with us, and as well as your fans who came over here. You got a little bit more of an insight on FLW videos. But with that being said, though, let's go ahead and move on over to some of the PvP discussion topics that I want to go over with FLW videos today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is sort of the expectations that Pokemon Go versus the main series kind of brought in. You know, because a lot of people were expecting more of a turn-based system when PvP went live because, I mean, let's be honest, the tap and swipe really isn't that competitive, and I think Niantic had realized that at some point, which again is why they did not implement a swipe option. It's more, you know, throw up your shield, and that's pretty much all there is to it, you know? There's no dodge function.
Yeah, they definitely did not try to fulfill a need that was being met elsewhere, especially with Let's Go coming out and then just the main series. There was no way that Pokemon Go was going to be able to compete when there are just so many options. But the expectations were set very high for those coming from that side of just the main series.
Definitely, man. Honestly, I think people had really wanted that turn-based system, and sort of to get that tap-based, it's really pushed people away from even trying PvP. And this is actually a topic that we covered in Famous's video, going over some of the PvP issues, is that there are 4 different groups of trainers out there. Again, you guys can go ahead and check that out if you are interested. I highly recommend it. I'll have a link to that right up here at the top, as well as at the end of the video. But yeah, man, you know, the Pokemon Go versus main series, the expectations were definitely there, and unfortunately not all of them were met, which I feel kind of led to people not even wanting to try a PvP in Pokemon Go.
So the thing about it is, yes, it didn't meet the expectations that people had, although the expectations were set to be pretty high. I know I've personally enjoyed PvP for Pokemon Go. I like the kind of idea of it. I just think there need to be a little bit of some tweaks and stuff. So we also get to cover a really cool topic as well on this, is kind of talking about who should really own the competitive kind of aspect of this, where you're talking about, like, should Niantic host tournaments? Should Niantic be the ones kind of trying to make something in-game? Maybe like other games have tournament modes and stuff. So definitely would love to jump into that topic.
Right. So this is something that Mystic7 himself has actually brought up, kind of going over the third parties that should be kind of implementing these systems in rather than Niantic. And so a lot of people are kind of divided on this because, some people are thinking, Niantic should be the ones to host the tournaments, have online competitive matches. And on the other side, you have content creators like Mystic7 who think that we are the ones who actually need to get this stuff going like we have been doing for the past 2 years. And they actually recently did do their first ever PvP tournament. I don't know if you guys had watched that recently, but it was hosted through the Sylph League, which again is really good that they're doing that right now. But the question stands, should we, the players, be the ones who have to host these tournaments, or should Niantic, actually provide this for us? I'll let Famous take over from here.
Yeah, so kind of my thoughts on it are kind of a twofold thing. First off, I do think that Niantic should be wanting to do that type of thing because that would give them the control as to how these different events can be created and crafted in the first place. They can create the rules. They can also create the venues and just, creating a really cool environment. But at the same time, from the creator side, I get that they think they should be the ones doing it, but I only think that's true because Niantic isn't doing it. So in that sense, if creators and a third-party venue or, whatever isn't doing it, then that means no one's doing it since Niantic isn't doing it. But I still stand behind it that I do think Niantic should be the owners of it eventually, if not now.
Yeah, I can definitely agree to that too. I mean, they are the ones who are running this game, and therefore, maybe for example at GoFest, you would expect them to be hosting PvP tournaments.
I thought of that instantly.
Yeah.
Whenever we mentioned PvP, and I said yes. When we go to Chicago Fest and everyone's there, we don't have to be ultra friends. We don't have to be best friends. We can get in there and we can do a tournament. You can sign up. You can do it. They'll host it at a tent. They'll do all these things. I don't think they'll do it now. I mean, to be honest, I don't think they want to do it. I think they're worried about maybe some signal issues. I think they don't want to own that entire process. And I do think YouTubers are probably going to step in and do it regardless. But I would love to see Niantic just take this by the harness and really, provide some fun things for us to do in the community.
Definitely, man. I mean, one of the biggest selling points is GoFest for a lot of players because it brings everyone together. And, I can definitely understand how Niantic might have some concerns, especially given the first GoFest with, connectivity and, delays and bugs and stuff going on in PvP, where some players might get upset if there was a 1 or 2 second, delay on their screen opposed to maybe their opponent, which costs them the match. And so ultimately, I think that could be a reason why they are avoiding it. I do think that the other YouTubers, especially like the bigger ones, could be the ones that actually end up hosting it. I'm not sure if it's going to be through Sylph League or rather maybe Niantic will contact them directly and have them kind of host it the way they want to host it, but that's definitely up in the air for right now. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to implement it. I don't think either of us know if Niantic is going to sort of implement these tournaments in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to see. I think the past kind of shows what direction they're going. First year, messed up. It was a disaster. This past year, people would argue that it worked, but it wasn't necessarily the best thing. If anybody who went, you would know that they actually had no raids going on at the event, which blew my mind. But they were being so conservative to make the servers work, they just didn't really have anything going on. So PvP, man, I just don't know if they have it in them to try to, or be willing to fail.
Yeah, honestly, given the first GoFest failure, they were a lot more on the conservative side. Obviously, I wasn't able to attend. I know you were able to attend, so you were able to see it firsthand, but it makes sense why they were more conservative about it, given that, the publicity would be so bad for the game had it gone, terrible for a second time. So for the third GoFest, I think they might be a little bit more risky in, trying to do stuff like that, but at the same time, I do feel like they will try and maintain that conservative approach just so nothing goes wrong, especially with connectivity. That's like the worst thing that could happen.
Absolutely, man. I want to see that be successful too. I want to see them be a little bit more risky for sure. But in regards to the next topic, we had mentioned something about a cost of the second charge move. What the heck? is Niantic thinking with that?
So yeah, the cost of the charge moves right now to unlock the second one is a little ridiculous, especially for role players right now who don't actually get to go out and catch too many Pokemon or even do raid battles for the most part because they just don't have the number of players. And so getting Stardust for them, getting candy for these really, really rare Pokemon to give them that competitive advantage just isn't there, opposed to maybe players who have the city advantage.
No, for sure. I mean, you even mentioned it about legendary Pokemon / mythical in the video that you made. I mean, some of those, that is insane. Like, if I were to say that I was going to spend 100,000 Stardust or 100 candy to unlock this move, at least in my community, being more of a rural setting, people would probably just laugh and be like, dude, you're wasting your Stardust. You know, everyone's focused on raiding, and that's the biggest deal because that's more of a community aspect. Like, we need everyone to be on their A game. Where unlocking the second charge move really is the main benefit towards PvP, but, you know, it only benefits yourself, I guess, you know, as opposed to just everyone around you.
Right, and you know, even though it is sort of incentivized just for PvP, it does actually have raid battle features in it, you know, with like depending on certain Pokemon, a good example being Moltres, you know, unlocking Overheat on a Sky Attack Moltres will give you the advantage of not having to TM different Moltres and kind of power them up. You can just use one Moltres with Sky Attack or Overheat depending on your scenario.
So that is one of those situations where it absolutely makes sense to do it, but that's mostly because Moltres only having a single quick move, the decision is eliminated, versus another Pokemon like Tyranitar, you can't get yourself like a double dark, double rock type moveset unless you're changing the first move, but no one wants to do that, especially if they have like a Community Day moveset. So yes, definitely matters. Moltres is a great example. I'm sure there are a couple of other examples, like maybe Articuno, but people really aren't using that one for raids, but that is definitely a good point. We have to keep our minds open that it really can benefit us outside of PvP, especially in certain situations.
Right, and so for the real player, you know, having to invest 100,000 Stardust, which is not easy to get by any means, and 100 rare candy, which who knows how long that would take given the amount of gyms that they have, if they have any gyms. I mean, that could take forever, and, you know, having the cost be so high on some of these Pokemon just really isn't super ideal, and it yields a really good benefit, depending on the Pokemon that you do invest into, which ultimately is going to give you a solid competitive advantage in PvP, as well as, you know, more flexibility within raid battles depending on the Pokemon.
Yeah, if we had this in the beginning when raids first started, it would have benefited us tremendously, because just imagine having one Moltres that has Sky Attack, right? And then you throw on the TM, get yourself Overheat on the second charge move. All of a sudden, you only have to invest in one Moltres. But now, I mean, I've already got 7 or 8 of them, and I've already invested it. And so now, I think to a lot of players, it just rendered pointless because of the timing. But hey, that's just my own opinion.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And I feel like that's the same way with a lot of things that are implemented. You know, Community Day moves are a good example. You know, you get a really good IV Pokemon and you evolve it all the way through, and then you find out, oh, it's going to have a better moveset later on, and you can't TM it. So there's a lot of things like that in game right now where, you know, movesets and abilities are released later on, and ultimately for the hardcore players who kind of worked hard to get them in the first place, it's more of an appeal to the casual, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, we can not necessarily TM, but if we open up our second charge move during some type of Community Day or something and allow experienced players to buy the exclusive move on a Pokemon that they already have, that would be really cool, and that would solve a lot of it.
Definitely. I think that's a great idea. I don't think Niantic would necessarily do it, but it is a really, really good solution to avoid, you know, the power creep from, or I would say more the fear of missing out from evolving a Pokemon early, or from, you know, raiding a certain, like, legendary so many times to, you know, get a really good IV. I think that would definitely help.
We will see on Feraligatr Community Day whether or not we can open up the second charge move, which is a great way to do it since it only costs 10,000 Stardust.
Yeah.
I've got myself a legacy move, man. I've got a water gun for Alligator that I would love to add on Hydro Cannon, so I'm crossing my fingers on that one.
That'd be a beast. That's also a really good point too. The legacy move sets, you know, combined with the community day charge moves, or you know,
that would be dirty.
Yeah, that'd be pretty epic. But it's kind of hard to say right now. Who knows if Niantic will do that in the future? But with that being said, the last thing that I kind of want to go over with Famous is the competitive aspect for the players who were actually anticipating PvP. Because for the past 2 years, we haven't had anything that was remotely competitive aside from maybe raid challenges. And so there were a lot of players who had, you know, grinded really hard to get all the candy, the stardust, everything they needed to dominate in PvP. And ultimately, you know, we have what we have. But I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you think about all that?
Man, I honestly feel like people have tried to create their own competition to kind of keep themselves going and just kind of telling themselves that there's going to be this next feature that's going to mean something. And to be honest, I think PvP was that. So I'm just a little worried that a lot of grinders who were competitive have moved on elsewhere. And then secondly, because of PvP not necessarily being up to the expectations that people had, people just kind of brushing it off and not necessarily coming back. So I do worry about it. Like you said, Pokemon Go has kind of developed an audience that isn't necessarily competitive. And then you add in a competitive feature, it has to be good for people to come back who are competitive, and I don't think right now it is.
Definitely, man. Honestly, who knows what Niantic will do in the future. We're all hoping that they do implement, you know, obviously bug fixes and more things that you can do in PvP. I mean, we talked about the online and offline indicator in Famous's video, and that's something that we both agree should definitely have been added, you know, in the release of PvP, because not knowing whether or not you have a friend that's online and, you know, having to go through various social media you know, channels just to even communicate and find out, hey, are you available for battle? It's a little bit extra for something that should have just been in the game initially, but yeah, it's sort of hard to say where the direction of the competitiveness within Pokemon Go is going. We're all hoping for the best, but you know, we'll see what happens. Anyways, though, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. Honestly, really loved having you on here, Famous. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed talking. We talked a lot offline as well, so yeah. Hopefully everyone did enjoy it. We definitely enjoyed like kind of discussing this type of stuff, and glad for you to invite me in to make a video.
Like I said, really appreciate having you on here. But with that being said though, guys, I think that's pretty much going to do it for this video. We talked about a lot of stuff in here, so you know, if you guys have not watched our video collab on Famous's channel, make sure to go check it out. There will be a link at the end of the video as well as in the description, so you know, make sure to go watch that as well. But with that being said, guys, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. So if you did enjoy it, feel free to hit that like button down below. As always, I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more Pokemon Go content, make sure to hit that subscribe button for future videos. And if you guys have not checked out FLW Videos channel by now, which I'd be really surprised if you haven't, make sure to go check it out. I will have a link in the description below. Honestly, really high quality Pokemon Go content, and I definitely recommend it. Anyways though, that is pretty much going to do it for this one, so I will see you all real soon in the next one.